Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast. This is the podcast where we had digital discussions, the worlds of pop culture, social media, sports, TV, film, zombies. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On Twitter, it goes PD Beats. My guest, his name is also Peter. He's known as you might have recognized him on a show called The Walking Dead as a character named Eduardo. We're with Peter Luis Zimmerman. Peter, welcome to Popternative.
What's up? Thanks for having me, man.
No problem. So I find it interesting because you're also a musician as well, and I find I classify musicians and actors and actresses and writers as you guys are storytellers. I think that's what kind of what you do. When did you decide that you wanted to become a storyteller?
Very young. I've always been super expressive and just kind of crazy. I would always watch commercials as a little kid and kind of act them back to the TV and be in my own world. So, from a very young age, I was always doing things like that. And, writing music actually came from not having a lot of friends growing up. So it was a way of expressing myself, and I was really into poetry. I was in a poetry class as a kid, and those turned into raps. They turned into songs. It's kind of always been an outlet for me.
When did you kind of decide that, so you touched a little bit about the music, the acting, kind of being on screen, being in TV and film. When did you kind of decide that you wanted to do that?
A young age.
Did you go to school for it?
I went to camps and workshops and things like that. And then in school, I was in theater, which is completely different from TV and film, but it still helps you with the acting side of things. And my mom, she asked me when I was young, do you want to take this seriously? Do you want to do this professionally? And, I was just like, yeah, of course. So she wasn't a stage mom by any means. And she actually got me in the right places with an agent and in the right avenues to actually make it a reality. So since I was 6-7 years old, I've had representation from an agent, just auditioning and striking out and auditioning some more, striking out again, missing school. And it wasn't until I was about 17, a junior in high school, where I booked my first TV gig. So, and I was about to give up. So I'm glad it happened.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. You always hear stories where people end up, doing things for a long time and then kind of stopping it, taking a break, trying something else and be like, no, I didn't like that. I'm going back to this, I was an athlete growing up, and then, I was always into hockey. Then I got into music a little bit, but then I kind of, my love never, stopped for hockey, but I just kind of got back into it, got jobs in hockey. So I find that really interesting. But yeah, you're the Walking Dead, man. It is a freak of nature beast. It's such a beast. It's so big. The popularity of it will never die. Ironically, like a lot of characters
right.
die on the show.
Right.
But talk a little. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a loaded question. But I mean, what's it like being a key part of a huge show like The Walking Dead, Peter?
I will say, I've technically been on the show now for 2.5 years from the time I booked it till now. And I'll say you don't really get the full scope of it until, and I still don't have the full scope of it. That's the point. When I got it, it was like a whirlwind of emotion because I was working at a Costco and just doing all these crazy 4 a.m. shifts. And I was like, oh, cool, another job. Hopefully I get it. Didn't even know it was for Walking Dead. Signed this non-disclosure agreement. Found out it was The Walking Dead. I hadn't watched the show previously, but all my friends had, and obviously I knew it was a huge phenomenon. So when I jumped into it, it was kind of just like it was already a moving machine, and I filmed, and then I came back, and I binge-watched everything, and I was like, oh, wow, okay, I get why people love the show. And then I realized that this fandom was a whole part of it, too, and that there's no off-season, kind of like with Game of Thrones. People are talking about it all year round. Spoiler sites and speculation videos, and there's so much to it that just, you just don't understand it until you're actually in it for a minute. And the fans are the most incredible fans in the world. Just from the the first episode I was in, where it was literally one line and just a couple shots of me. I had like 400, 500 people follow me that night and just tell me how excited they were for my comic book character to come to the screen. And I was just like, whoa, what am I getting myself into? And yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's massive. And these conventions that I get to go to, that kind of gives me the most sense of how big it is, because you actually see these people in the flesh coming up to you and telling you how excited you are on the show. So
I'm happy you brought that up, because it's a perfect segue to what I want to talk about. So, but basically, a lot of the, like, it started as graphic novels and comics and became a show. What I find interesting is we had Haley Lovett on the show. She plays Sage on a show called The Gifted, Marvel's The Gifted on Fox.
Oh, yes.
And what's really cool is her character, I mean, it's like X-Men based, and her character Sage is like one of the only like actual characters from the comics. Everyone else was kind of like created for the show.
Okay.
So she's kind of has that cool, I don't know if you want to say advantage, where, when she goes to conventions, there are people that can actually have her, sign, parts of the comics, you know what I mean? And everything like that. I find that geek culture, comic culture, that culture is, I'm not saying it never was big, but it's bigger than it's ever been these past couple of years. It just seems like there's way more conventions. It just seems like people are like freaking out about, these new shows and these new characters and buying merch. Like, did you kind of see that boom, that pop culture boom as well the last couple of years, Peter?
Oh, yeah. Even with me as a fan, in the past couple of years, I've actually gotten into, the Marvel Cinematic Universe a lot more. DC, Game of Thrones, and that's, a novel as well. And then with Walking Dead, it's a graphic novel. And, it's funny that you mentioned the advantage you have to having a comic book counterpart. It's kind of cool, because it's like when you've only had this much screen time at the time when I first was on the show, I still had fans. I still had people that were like, dude, I've been reading about your character since 4 years ago. And I'm just like, what the hell? That's incredible. Like, that's a dream come true. I got to, it's all these little like lifelong dreams since I was a kid that are like coming true. Like with, the Topps deal I just did a couple weeks ago, where I signed a baseball card for The Walking Dead for my character. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was sick. It was like, what is life right now? This is me on a card. Like, that's incredible. Just little things like that you just, that are just wild, because of the comic book. And, it's definitely boomed in the past couple of years, I think.
You might or might not know the answer to this question, or it might be just like, I don't know, I never thought about it. But do you think maybe why, so Eduardo's character gets more, like, his involvement and roles in the show gets bigger and bigger as we go, right?
Yeah.
So do you think you having a comic book character has to do with that?
Yes and no. I think that the one thing I love about The Walking Dead is, they're very big on fan response. So, Daryl Dixon, for example, is not even a comic book character, but he's a lead on the show, just, up there with Rick Grimes. So yes, I think they take into account, your comic book counterpart, and they may have a plan for you to start with. But, I do think it has a lot to do with what the fans are liking on the screen, and what they want to see more of and things of that nature. And, I probably won't be able to tell you that until, officially, until it's actually over and done with, or I have a meeting with the writers and people like that. But yeah, it's definitely, I think, influenced by both TV and comic.
The Walking Dead does the cast of The Walking Dead do an unbelievable job of the fan interactions on social media. It is amazing. And you know what's cool is you'll have people that have been in like 1 or 2 episodes, and they are like, they have diehard fans, and they're tweeting out and they're creating followers, because it's the beast that we mentioned. It's a huge show, right? What are some of like your favorite kind of moments on social media with interacting with a fan? Was there a cool message you got? Has anyone ever made fan art about Eduardo? Like, have you had any cool interactions or encounters?
Yeah, let me show you. I mean, everything is cool. Like, fan art has been pretty wild. Here's one. I'm in my office set up right here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is from an artist. Her name is her name on Twitter is Hope Project Arts. I got a friend too who let me grab one more since I'm doing show and tell for you.
Awesome.
I think this one's pretty cool. It's all of us at the hilltop. Myself, Maggie, Jesus, Enid,
Oh man,
Gregory. Yeah. So yeah, I think these are pretty cool. And when fans tweet at me their art that they've spent hours and hours working on. I've had people make GIFs or GIFs, however you say it. I think that's pretty neat, where they just take like a screenshot, 3 seconds of you, and just it loops over and over again. And just the messages where people are like, dude, your character means so much to me, or we want to see more of you on screen. I can't wait to meet you. Things like that. Just the fact that people care that much to take time out of their day just to let you know how appreciative they are of you and your character. That's the best part.
Before I get to my next question, I just wanted to mention something because I find it funny because you mentioned, you're in your office and you have kind of the memorabilia and the stuff around. So sometimes I'll do I'll do a couple of interviews on the weekends with certain people, and I also interview wrestlers as well. So
nice.
I remember I did a few interviews of some people that were on Marvel shows, and then I had the wrestler on from the UK, Nathan Cruz, and then we finished the episode. I'm like, hey man, I'm doing, are you into Geek Culture and stuff? Because I'm doing these interviews and stuff, and he's like, funny you should ask, because we're actually in my Batman and Power Rangers room, and his whole his whole room is and I'm so mad we didn't talk about it during the show, but his Power Rangers and Batman everywhere.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll show you. I mean, this is, by the way, this is my office / closet because I'm in a smaller space right now.
Yeah.
But I'm going to show you. I mean, I'm a huge, I wouldn't call myself a huge nerd. And I say that in a very nice way because I would love to be a huge nerd, but I will say I'm very into the DC and the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes.
Very into Game of Thrones. So kind of like the surface nerd, but I'll show you what I got. I got
sure.
This is my name spelled out in superheroes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I got a big Marvel painting up there. And
have you watched Marvel The Runaways yet?
No, I auditioned for that show.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And The Gifted too.
Oh wow. Well,
yeah. So when you said that, I was like,
oh man, I hate bringing up show. Oh man, why do you guys gotta say that? It's not fair to the podcast hosts. We feel bad when you're like, oh no, I know that show.
You know what though? Anything you probably mentioned, at a certain point, we've auditioned for it.
No, absolutely.
So it's there's times where I'll be watching a game on TV or something, and I'll see a commercial for a movie that I auditioned 3 or 4 times for, and I'm like, damn it, just put me in a shitty mood. So
no, it's just I remember having Radic Lord on the show, and he played Jimmy. He had a couple of episodes in Ballers, and I'm bringing up all these shows, and he's like, yeah, that's a great show. I auditioned, I didn't get it. And I'm just like, man, I'm sorry, but I look like a jerk now because I brought up a show. But we're pretty much 4 months into 2018, which is insane.
Crazy.
What were some of the goals that you set for yourself in the beginning of the year, and are you kind of close to getting to them, or was it kind of stuff that you're like, hey, it's a new year, I got to get on this?
That's an interesting question because, what's weird is that this show has kind of it hasn't consumed my life, to where it's everything is The Walking Dead, but time is just so different. It just moves so differently now because schedules with shooting, and then your off season is not really an off season because you're booking conventions and you're doing all these things. It's almost I didn't really have a clear separation from 2017 to 2018. It was just kind of all one big, this just felt like one big year. But yeah, I mean, every day I'm setting goals for myself, and I do have a couple goals this year. I won't mention specifics, but for the show I have goals. The Walking Dead, and just as an actor, I want to keep progressing in my career and keep booking, roles. And I will say my auditions have been bigger and better, which is great. It's not just, guy number 4. It's name roles, it's lead roles, it's series regulars, it's things like that, which are very exciting. So, yeah, little things here and there. And then obviously with the music, I'm really trying to expand the audience this year. And I think Walking Dead has absolutely helped that with the fan base. And yeah, so.
Incredible, man. Well, I think we'll wrap up with Peter. Thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, we've been wanting to do this for a while. We got it done, man. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Time to plug. Plug away.
Okay.
The stage is yours, man. Where can people follow you? What's coming up?
If I must plug, okay.
You have to. You have no choice.
Right. Okay. Well, since you insisted, Twitter, Instagram are the same. It's I am Peter Z.
That's a great handle, by the way.
Oh,
fantastic.
Thank you. Facebook is Peter Luis Zimmerman. If you just type in Peter Luis Zimmerman, it comes up. And I have an album coming out. We haven't set a specific date, but it's probably going to be May or June of this year. So super excited about that. We're finishing it up right now. And yeah, I got some conventions coming up. There's a bunch that are like tentative that I can't announce, but I will say we just booked Walker Stalker Orlando. That is August 11th and 12th. Thank you.
Woo!
Super excited about that one. So August 11th and 12th, I'll be down there, and I'm super excited.
Walking Dead conventions. It's nuts.
Nuts. I did my first one, my first Walker Stalker this past year in Atlanta, which is where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And apparently that's one of the biggest ones, and it was wild. I was there for maybe 6 hours, and I probably met it felt like 20,000 people I probably met that day.
I've had so many cool guests from like the Star Wars and like the Dragon Ball Z like universes and have the best kind of Comic-Con stories. And I think the best one was like Peter Kalamis came on my show a few actually before we released it a couple weeks ago, but he did it before the new year. But he was saying like people wouldn't even like recognize him. They'd be dressed because he did Goku, right, in the Ocean Dome.
Oh yeah.
And he'd be like, "Hey guys, I'm Goku," and they're like, "Yeah, whatever." He's like, "No, I'm Peter Kalamis." They'd be like, "Oh my god!" Or like oh man, you got to see the episode. He was like, this kid comes up to him. He's like, "You did the voice of Goku," and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Let's hear it," and he does it, and then the kid's like, "Oh, must have been a long time ago," and just walks away. And then like Delilah S. Dawson, who wrote the Phasma Star Wars book, going to all these different conventions and Dragon Con, and she said that she'd like try to get into the booth, and then people would be like, "Hey, no cutting," and they're like, "Trust me, it's worth it. Like you're waiting in line to see me. Like I need to cut."
Right.
Yeah. So it's awesome. But man, congratulations with all the success with The Walking Dead.
Thank you.
It's fantastic to see. Yeah, man. Hopefully we will have you on to talk about some auditions that went well.
Right.
But no,
Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.
Well, this has been Popturnative. Popturnative.com for brand new content. YouTube.com for the video. If you don't want to see my face, you can just listen on the for the Spotify, iTunes. I think they want to see your face though, Peter. So we could just say YouTube.com. It's all good.
Yeah, YouTube.com.
But yeah, until next time, this is Peter Luis Zimmerman and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popturnative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popturnative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popturnative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter